Harry Loasby, welcome to the Process Podcast, my friend.
Thank you for having me.
How are you doing today?
Pretty tired. It's been a long day, but I'm excited to be here. Yeah.
What does a long day look like for you?
Up at 5, on the ferry at 6, coaching by 7. I had a Lululemon event today, 9 to 12, and then came here to Coastal for the first time, actually. Ran on that, what's it called?
Assault runner.
Assault runner, first time. That was an experience.
And
but, yeah.
I did notice we were just sending some back and forth message. I was awake a little earlier than normal today because I was playing around the golf this morning.
Oh yeah.
And I noticed that you responded to me at about 5:30, and I was like,
yes.
Oh, this is pretty cool. He's obviously an early riser. Are you always an early riser?
Yeah. I was saying to Nico downstairs, I don't think I've used an alarm in maybe 10, 15 years. I just am so hardwired at getting up at like 4:30 or 5 that it's actually now a curse. Even on New Year's Day, I'm up at 6. It's horrible.
At what time do you go to bed?
I try to go to bed at 10, but usually it's more like 11. Yeah.
Mate, that's so you're bed at 11, up at 4:35.
Yeah, I probably average about 6 hours, 5.5, 6 hours a night. Yeah, it's not recommended.
I would say this is probably a great time for you to introduce yourself. So
Yes.
Who are you, Harry? What do you do?
I'm Harry Loasby. I was born and raised in Hong Kong. I'm a runner. I have run for Hong Kong. It's complicated, as we might talk about later. I have a few national records on the track. I have the FKT, which is fastest known time for the Lantau Trail. I've run half marathons, ultra marathons, any distance, any surface. Love it all. I'm a full-time coach as well. I started my coaching company back in 2019, so it's been 4 years now. I do that full-time. Lululemon ambassador alongside you. And yeah, I think that's pretty much covers it.
And we actually went to the same school.
That's right. Yes, went West Island.
We did. And it was very cool to reconnect with you.
Yes,
at the Lululemon ambassador where they basically got all the ambassadors together.
Yeah, on the onboarding, yeah.
And there was a really cool part to that day, which was they asked us as ambassadors to partner up and share basically kind of like our origin story, right? What brought us to who we are and where we are today. And then we were given this opportunity to present that and share that with the group.
Yeah.
I was heckled to come out and do the first one.
It's true, you didn't volunteer. Yeah.
Someone just said, Ed Haynes.
Yeah.
So I shared first and you actually shared as well. And I thought you had a really nice story, a very interesting story that I had no idea. And I'd love if you'd be open to sharing and elaborating on that a bit more.
Yeah, so I can't remember exactly what we were discussing at that event, but anyway, basically I started running at 16. It was kind of my second sport, but I got quite good at it quite quickly, and I got really passionate about it. And it got to the point where I was getting up every day before 5 a.m. doing morning runs. I was dedicated. I wanted to make it as a pro. Everything I did, I ate, I slept, I ran. Should have done a bit more schoolwork, but really I was an athlete and I was ready to commit to everything, the sport and the lifestyle. And unfortunately, the Athletic Association here did not really make me feel welcome. Like within a year, I was the national champ for 1500. I think I went 18 months unbeaten or something in Hong Kong in men's category as well as a teenager. And I was top of the game, but they would keep picking other runners over me that were slower. They would not reply to my emails. When I did go to the US to run in college, and I did break some records, it took them months and months, and I had to follow up before they actually ratified the record. Whereas, a runner today breaks the record and it's in the news 2 hours later, but mine was never announced. I had to get USATF involved, and it was a really demoralizing sort of sentiment from the association to just not acknowledge my efforts at all. And I was really passionate about where I was from growing up. Like you were third culture kids kind of in Hong Kong. We're from Hong Kong, but there's an asterisk next to it, right? And I still call Hong Kong home, even though I'm not a Cantonese speaker. It's everything I know. And I wanted to represent that home, but that home didn't want me to represent them. And that was a really difficult journey that I had to get through in university. And it's a lot of pressure too when you're training so hard for a specific goal, and then you make that, whether you make that goal or not, you don't even know if it will be accepted as legitimate. So when I finished university and I came back to Hong Kong, having been through all that, being told no basically by the association a lot, being rejected and being ignored, I eventually started to let go of trying to please them and trying to get them to accept me, and just explored other ways in which I could represent my home and my community through running that didn't hold up to their standards. And that was the best decision I ever made. And I think that's we talked about in the Lululemon onboarding, was that was right around when all things were kicking off in Hong Kong, and there was a real identity crisis in Hong Kong. And I just looked at all that, and I just felt really proud of where I was from, regardless of how the association interacted with me. It became much more about the people and the community and less about standards and records. And that was a really liberating thing, I think.
What got you into running in the first place?
So I was actually an avid football player, played at football club. I got cut from the U15s or U16s, I can't remember. I was devastated. That was my dream sport. And then I just decided to start running a bit more. I just got quite good at it quite quickly, and I just loved the competitiveness and the lifestyle. And yeah, I just got hooked from the first race, basically.
I think there's a difference between starting running and loving it and starting running and having this dream to be professional and represent your country. So where did that come from?
Well, actually, I think I love running more now that I've let go of the professional aspect of it. I mean, to be honest, by definition, I'm a professional runner because I get paid to run and coach. So I have made it. I just haven't hit the standards that my teenage self would have wanted. But I think I've found much more value in what I am doing now by letting go of those professionalism sort of goals. But loving running is, I mean, when I was chasing records, it's a very fine line between, passion, motivation, and absolute despair. And you're constantly holding yourself to a standard. You're constantly comparing yourself to other standards. And it's a dangerous tightrope to walk for so many years, especially given the context that I might successfully walk that tightrope and then not be, ratified. So letting go of that and exploring other ways to pursue my best and not worry about those standards has been like the best development for my relationship with running, for sure.
I'm loving you talking about your running and your career.
Yeah.
But what was the catalyst that made you eventually decide to stop pursuing, competitive running?
To clarify, definitely I'm still competitive. It's just the angle has changed. I'm much more into trail and road than I was into track necessarily. But then I say the main reason I don't chase track times as much is because of the association and how there's just so little opportunity here. The standard's much lower. The support is really low. So it's difficult to get into elite track running in Hong Kong, especially over 200 meter distance. There's just no support for anything other than sprints. To be honest, yeah.
In your story, talking about the association and you having this dream, and you've always identified Hong Kong as your home, and you have this national pride where you want to represent them. I think a detail that you haven't told us is actually where your mum and dad are from.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Which is probably
quite important.
Which is probably a pretty major point in the story.
I am quite racially ambiguous too. I've been mistaken for many things, but
as do I.
Yeah, my dad is British, born and raised London, and my mum is Japanese, born and raised Tokyo. Also /Chicago /Hong Kong. So she's very international as well, but British-Japanese mix, but Hong Kong born and raised. Yeah.
Okay, so one of our listeners, well, a friend of yours had asked a question for this podcast, and while we're on the topic, which is, why don't you continue to chase Hong Kong records, and why are you making this transition into trails?
So, as I mentioned, the whole chase and then the fact that it might not even count is a big reason, because it's just so much energy to pour in to a target that may not even be ratified. And the fact that that's out of my control is just, I just hate that.
So can I just pause you there, Harry, real quick? So is it, if you run a time, this isn't just about, okay, so we're talking about records here, right? So surely a record does that have to be done at a meet? Yeah. And do you have to be representing a country to break a record?
Not necessarily, but under Hong Kong rules, it has to be a nationally certified event that the whichever governing body approves of that event. And there's all this paperwork and stuff.
And so the hard thing for you is actually getting
it's like getting into a race, because all the races in Hong Kong are very low standard, and they're run at different times of the year. There's no season, so you can't really train to peak for a season. They run the national championships in the summer, which is just ridiculous for distance events. Your endurance events are like 15-20 seconds per km difference in the summer here. So in a 5K, that's, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot maybe, but in a 5K, that's already over a minute difference. And the other reason is, and I kind of want to address the person who asked the question, is that I am still chasing those records, but I just no longer care if the HKAA ratify them or not. I am absolutely still chasing fast times on the track, but I've just let go of the expectation to hold Hong Kong records. It doesn't matter to me anymore. And I've found that to be a very liberating thing.
Yeah, love that. With Buffalo Running,
yes,
which is your club,
yes,
you work with people of all ages, all abilities. Seems super inclusive for what we see on the outside. What was the motivation behind that? You know, why did you transition into coaching and find this coaching organization?
So our start was quite interesting, I guess you could put it that way. I came back in 2018 from the US, and I was trying to sort of make it as a runner still. I was coaching football at the time. I kind of did a training camp in Japan, I think. And I was really still trying to pursue running for me, right? And to be pro. That was still the dream. And then I was, like a lot of these kind of high-level juniors that were at our old school, West Island, and some at other international schools, had noticed that I'd come back, and they were asking me all these questions about training, about running. And I was, you know, I just wanted to help them, and I would answer them on Instagram and stuff like that, WhatsApp. And I said, hey, let's go for a run on Sunday. Let's just make it a weekly thing, and we'll talk about running, and we'll just a casual social thing. But it became every Sunday, and they got really into it, and the group grew a little bit. There was now like 6 or 7 boys showing up to run with me, and they were really passionate about running, but they were also very stagnant and very anxious and very unsatisfied with their progress. And I could sense that they wanted a lot more from their training and from their efforts. And I just said, hey, look, guys, let's, because they all had different coaches and they were part of different teams. And I said, what if I just started a club? Like, would you want to just all come and let's just start a new club with a new ethos and a new philosophy and see what happens? And they were like, yes, absolutely, let's do that. So it started with those like core group of boys, and the main objective was to help them pursue the path that I took, which was to run collegiate cross-country and track in the US, which is a very difficult pathway. Only a handful of athletes across any sports in Hong Kong have made it to the US. And there's a bit more support now. There's some organizations that help you reach out to schools. But when I did it, I literally had no help. I had no idea what I was doing, but I somehow managed to make it. I just sent all these emails off to random people, and couple got back to me, and I found my way onto a university team, and it was the best experience ever. So I definitely wanted to share that pathway with as many as I could. It's a very difficult and exclusive pathway, but if they are dedicated, they can make it. And actually, out of that group, initial core group of 6 or 7 boys, I think 3 or 4 of them do now run either in the US, Canada, or the UK for their university teams.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so that was the original group, the original goal. Eventually, I saw it as a possible lifestyle to support myself full time. So I quit my football coaching job, and I really wanted to just make this. I thought a lot about the branding, about the club culture that I wanted to build, about the mission statement and all that, and kind of the movement that I wanted to create to change the sort of mentality of young runners in Hong Kong, and to get them to realize it's for life, not just for school, and that they can really pursue it to heights that they didn't think possible. So we opened the doors to more kids of all levels of different sports as well, because running is in every sport, essentially.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate foundation sport. So now we coach football players, rugby players, and those kids are now the best kids on their teams, because they can outrun everybody for 90 minutes. So it just grew from there exponentially. To be honest, I've spent $0 on advertising. I think I once did an Instagram boost for $50 or something, but that everything's been word of mouth. And we now have over 100 runners in our club. So it's just been a organic, very kind of...
Can I ask, because I see running clubs sometimes,
yeah.
Kennedy, where I live in Kennedy Town, I see big groups of people running together. I think it's awesome. how, as a running club, when you say you have members, do they pay a monthly fee? Does that give them X number of sessions? Are the sessions, are they running with you? Does that mean you have to run as a coach with them every time?
No. So my style is that I almost never run with the people I coach. Yeah. I think that's a cool thing to do, and I really respect the running groups that do that and their leaders run with them. That's a great initiative. But my style of coaching is that when I'm there at the session, I'm the coach and I'm observing. And my role really is actually to, more often than not, is to tell people to stop or to slow down and give them pointers and let them run and let them teach themselves how to pace and learn their limits and more nuanced things rather than just like, hey, let's go for a run. So it's a bit more technical than that. In terms of membership, it did fluctuate a lot when I first started. I think when I was getting started, I really looked at the other clubs and I really disliked the buy session model because, especially from parents, and I understand this absolutely, but they felt, if they're paying, let's say $200 for a session, $100 per session, and they're okay, $100 for this hour. I want my kid to run for, like, they need to work hard for an hour. Yeah. The reality is, like, in running especially, most training is not at your ultimate best. And a lot of it is sometimes, like I said, my job is to tell them to slow down or to take rest and to not come to training and take time off and understand why that's important, or to go easy and know when to go easy. But easy doesn't sell. So it's difficult to go by session because sometimes a kid might come and the best thing for them to do that day is to do a 30-minute recovery run. But a parent might look at that and go, why am I paying you money to send my kid on a 30-minute easy run? They could just do that at home on their own. But it's not, but what I wanted to build was something bigger than that. It's not about the session. It's about the team, the culture, and the community, and what that brings to you in the bigger picture and in the long run. So I got rid of the buy session quite quickly. We went monthly. We started quite expensive because I only had a few kids, but now we've brought it down actually over the years to $1,000 a month for the kids team. And that includes all sessions. And our adults team is even cheaper. I went off the UK model, which is you just pay a fee once a year. But although for Hong Kongers, that's difficult. So I also added a monthly. So it's $1,000 for the year for the adult team. Wow. And $150 a month for the monthly.
And what does that give someone who's a part of Buffalo Running Club?
You just come to any sessions. You're in our WhatsApp community, and you're part of our community and our team and our culture. So it's just to be a member, basically. Yeah. So,
it's interesting hearing about you, because there's some years between us at West Island School, but hearing about kids at school have this like insatiable appetite to want to run and get better at running. When I was at school, there was no one who cared about running.
Yeah,
it was like we were a big team sport.
Yes.
Year group, I think, just in terms of like, across my entire year group, running really wasn't the thing. Like at inter-school athletics was, if you were a good sports athlete in something else, you would just step into the event. So what has contributed to that?
I think the foundation was there already. I mean, I'm sure they made you run the school cross country.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And so that was a really strong foundation already. Yeah. But I think the catalyst to West Island's sort of golden era, because now they're one of the prominent schools for cross country in Hong Kong. They're one of the best. They're one of the hardest teams to beat. And we go to the international school champs and we win by an absolute landslide. Out of the top 20 runners, we have 15 of them in every category, right? But the foundation was there. Everyone ran cross country. Everyone knew their cross country time. And all it took was for the right coach. It happened to be the coach that he was kind of the PE assistant, but he was also a runner, and the right runners. So there was a really good group of runners in the year above me, my year, and the year below. And there was just this 3 or 4 year golden era of runners that were very high level, doing really good things and had really good attitudes and were a really good example for the younger kids. That then faded because that coach left and those 3 year groups graduated, and there was definitely a decline. But I do think, and then COVID did not help at all. But the last year or two has really seen a rebuild in that. And now I'm actually coaching at West Island again, and I'm trying to rebuild that golden era that we had.
It's interesting you said, I know the pandemic didn't help in terms of coaches being able to work with people, especially in somewhere like Hong Kong, because everything was shut down, right? And human-to-human contact was just not a thing.
Yeah.
But I have seen a lot of studies around the rise in running popularity from the pandemic. Have you seen a big impact on things like your coaching organization?
Yeah, I think COVID was a big wake up call for a lot of people in terms of their personal health and well-being, and that whole like, and especially in the UK, it was big with the doing a 5K, the COVID 5K.
Yeah, that was awesome.
It's huge, and you got like Premier League footballers doing it and stuff like that.
Everyone on Strava.
And yeah, Strava had a great year.
Yeah, so good.
Definitely, there's been I think in general anyway, before COVID, there was, especially with trail running seems to be the most accessible discipline of running. Track is quite not elitist, but there's technicalities and there's rules and there's standards.
Yeah.
And road is sort of a more relaxed version of track, but trail is a very, very sort of human, very open, very welcoming community that anyone can be a part of. So, and that's definitely boomed, especially in Hong Kong, given the environment here in the mountains. Like, yeah, definitely noticed an uptick in runners and people getting into running, and people who have never ran before or never done sport before, and they want to get fit. Running is the most sensible first sport.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna pull this back a little bit to something you said earlier.
Yeah.
Which was peaking, right? So you talked about something that was hard within the Hong Kong running scene, was that there wasn't a clear definitive season, which meant it's really hard for you to prepare your athletes for anything, right? Because you're kind of training all the time. We talk about this all the time in CrossFit, but every other sport that we coach athletes in, that the importance of having structure within a year, off seasons, pre-seasons, in seasons, and tweaking a training plan based around that, so that peaking means that you can be at your physical, mental best when you need to be at competition time.
Yeah.
Talk me through not only just peaking for running and what that typically looks like, how you structure a year for people, but also I'm interested to hear in your stance on strength and conditioning, and whether you see that as an important part that should be integrated into a runner's prep.
Yeah, well, we'll start with the kind of season structure in Hong Kong, right? Or the lack of structure. I mean, in terms of track, they have track races all year round, which is very unusual. Most countries, especially the countries that are good at track and field, will have a track season that's typically in the summer.
And they just had the athletics,
the world champs, in Europe, and so yeah, usually that's at the end of the season. So that was in, I think, June or something. Yeah. And typically there's a cross country season in the autumn or the winter, and then a indoor track season or outdoor track season, or both in the spring and the summer. But in Hong Kong, they just kind of do it all year. So you're sort of expected to be at your best whenever demanded, which means that
no one's at their best.
Which means no one's at their best. I mean, like I always say, my national record is a cooler title than the time, because honestly, the Hong Kong standards are so far behind the world stage that, I mean, there are high school girls running faster than the top men in Hong Kong in the US. So we really can get in our own bubble here, I think, a little bit when we have
embrace it, mate.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I love the title. It's fantastic. But I am very aware of how far behind Hong Kong is, and a part of that is having no season structure and not being able to hit higher peaks and take lower lows in the off season and actually take time off. In terms of what was the other question about?
Well, so I guess, generally speaking, obviously it depends on the discipline, right? So what you're preparing someone for. Most of the people who are with Buffalo Running Club, what are they prepping for?
So for the youth team, they're all kind of on the same schedule. They've got it's not really a season, because they've got the cross country champs in late November, but they'll still have an odd track race randomly in the year, like in October or something, which is very disruptive, but it's part of the game. So the first sort of few months, especially if they haven't run over the summer, we can talk about it later maybe, but I did take some kids to the US for summer training camp. You went to
Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So some kids did run over the summer, and that's great because they build aerobic base, and they're ready to roll when they get back.
Can I just pause you there? Yeah. Is that, generally speaking, lower intensity, longer durations?
Yes. Volume. Yeah.
Volume, yeah.
Whether that's distance or time. Personally, I prefer time.
Yeah.
But a lot of people go by distance too, and just gradually building over a period of at least, I'd say, 8, 10, or 12 weeks of just gradual building. And that's not to say that you don't do some speed. I think hills are really good, and strides, like short sprints, but nothing too hardcore, nothing too specific.
Yeah.
Kind of just by feel workouts and just, just feeling out your fitness.
Yeah.
And focusing on volume. And then as the season kicks in, when they get back to school, some of the kids are playing catch up because they haven't run over the summer. So I'm kind of giving them a boot camp base training phase over September, October. But for the ones that have been running over summer, I start to add a little bit more quality, a bit more intensity, but it's still endurance focused. So it'll be like longer tempo runs, lactate threshold, that kind of thing, working their speed endurance. And then as races approach in the winter, we'll add some race specific speed. And to be honest, in Hong Kong, you can't really run race pace for 9 months of the year. So
it's too hot.
Yeah, you only really realistically have December through February to run race pace. Everything else is heat adjusted. So yeah.
So basically, and as you edge closer towards whatever the main competition you're peaking people for, your training is just getting a little bit more specific. It's starting to look more like the race.
Yes, exactly. Specificity is king as you approach the race.
Yeah.
But earlier in the block, when you're about 12, 16, 20 weeks out from your A race, you really want to be sharpening the tools in your shed that you might not need on race day.
Yeah.
So if you're training for a marathon, you might want to work on some of your top end speed early in the block, because that can help with things like running economy. And it's something you won't need come race day, but it will help you in the long run in terms of your form. And
unless you're sprint finishing just to try and get that one extra place on the marathon.
It all counts. Yeah. So, and same with track, like you're running a lot of long, slow, easy runs, even though your event is the 1500 meters, you're doing a lot of long, slow runs in the summer. And then as you get towards your A race, your school championships or whatever it is, you're then on the track and you're doing race effort and you're sharpening the body and the mind for race day.
What about resistance training? Where does that come into the way that you prep athletes?
So
does it?
Like weights training? See, I had to clarify.
Yeah. There you go. Maybe that's answered the question already.
Well, for me personally, I have a very up and down relationship with weights and running. I think it's undeniably important for runners to do strength and conditioning. Whether or not with weights, I'd say is debatable. I think for some runner, generally my whole coaching philosophy is that every runner is different. So some runners will absolutely benefit and need weight training in their program. And some runners, it will be detrimental for them. I don't always know why, but some of them just made a glass and they break when they touch a weight.
Yeah.
And they just need to do body weight and mobility and core and stuff like that. But I think strength and conditioning is important for every runner. I think you're fooling yourself if you think you can just run and get away with it.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right though. I agree with the individualization aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people will see the validity in strength training for injury prevention, especially with there's so much repetitive strain in running of the same movement pattern over and over again. So those muscles and tissues get very strong.
Yeah.
Everything else that's not being used typically weakens, and we often break at the weakest link, right? Mm-hmm. And so in those off-season phases, having strength training in there to make sure we are having a more well-rounded approach and training tissues and muscles and jointness and angles that don't get addressed in this season.
All the tools that you don't necessarily need, but you need them in the background.
And at the end of the day, as you get closer to race day, strength and conditioning is less and less important.
Yes.
And you need to spend more time doing the actual race.
Yeah.
I'd also say, there'll be some athletes, I think particularly with females that I've worked with, who perhaps can't express power as much. And especially for someone who is competing in maybe like races with hills or like there's inclines, or it's just a faster paced event. And there's someone who generally is more enduring than they are powerful. Then incorporating weight training into that person's regimen is going to give them the ability to access another gear should they need it. Because some people just don't have those gears.
Well, and if you've got a strong body and a strong core, you can hold your form. You might have great form when you have energy, but if your body starts to go, it doesn't matter how aerobically fit you are, if you can't hold your form, then you're going to slow down. So you definitely need to be a strong runner.
And I think that's why I have found that generally men can get away with being very good runners still and not need strength and conditioning, because they naturally possess the natural levels of strength and power that allows them to have the gears, right? And to have the musculature and the infrastructure to be able to support it.
Well, so currently I'm not doing any strength and conditioning.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask, my question was going to be to you to say, you know, what you said you've got this up and down relationship with it. So what has that relationship looked like?
So I've tried to incorporate it several times. Obviously at university in the US, they have you in the gym as a student athlete. We were in there 3 times a week. Usually it would be 2 lift days and then 1 sort of mobility day. And then we would kind of sandwich track workouts on a Tuesday, Thursday between the Monday, Wednesday, Friday conditioning. which was really great and actually was really important for me when I was first going over there because I was severely underweight and a weak runner, and I was prone.
When you say a weak runner, what do you mean?
I was prone to a lot of like shin splints and sort of chronic small injuries that never really kept you out of running, but kept you from training your best. It was those kind of things, and I was definitely underweight, like medically.
Yeah.
I ate
Relative to the other athletes.
Yeah, even by cross country standards, I was a skinny, slim, lightweight runner, which meant I could fly easily, but it would also I'd burn up really easily too. I think I was like 58 kilos at the same height I am now.
What are you now?
I'm height or weight?
Wait, I'm assuming you haven't grown that much since.
Yeah, no, I haven't grown at all. I don't really know. I don't weigh myself anymore, but usually it's around 60 to 65, somewhere in that range. But it used to be like 50 something, which was just, I mean, there wasn't any muscle on me basically. And the weight, so the 3 times a week was really good to help me build muscle and activate muscles that I wasn't capitalizing on. Actually, a lot of it I think is that runners have the strength there, but they're not activating it and not utilizing that strength. So
there's also a lot of technique with weightlifting, that weight training in general, that it takes time for people who haven't spent time in the gym to actually,
So because we were in a team, we didn't really get the one-on-one. We weren't taught, we were taught basics on terms of like squat form and stuff like that. But it wasn't until I left university that I started working with a friend in the gym, and he one-on-one got me through all the form. And generally the form was good because they had taught us that stuff in college, but they hadn't spent time with each athlete one-on-one to really correct everything. So that block with him when I came back from the US, my first season back in Hong Kong, I incorporated the gym and I was running 100 to 130K a week. And it was the first time I'd run that kind of volume and had weights and not gotten injured, because in university that was my problem. I had a stress fracture in my tibia when I was lifting 3 times a week or 2 times a week and running 130, 150K a week. I couldn't balance. And a lot of that was nutrition and other reasons too, but that really put me off strength and conditioning, like weights, when post injury. Took a lot of time to like gain confidence in weights again. Then I had the good block with my friend Mike, and had a few breakthroughs, good PBs on the road. But then I got injured again. By the end of the block, I was getting shin splints again. I didn't get a stress fracture. I had a stress reaction, so that's kind of one level below. And then I started trail running after that, because my physio at the time said, okay, you need to take some time off running because there's some inflammation on your bone again, but you can hike. Like hiking is okay. Low impact is fine. So I went hiking, and actually this is quite cool. I don't know if you want to hear about it, but it's a cool story. That next day I hiked up Sunset Peak, which at the time I was living with my parents in Poyo. So I was like, okay, I can hike. I don't want to.
Which is an island in Hong Kong, if you didn't know.
Yes, Lantau Island. Sunset Peak's one of the probably the best mountains in Hong Kong, right? And I hate cross training. I absolutely hate it. So I was like, okay, I'll hike. I'll get outside. I'll do it. So I hiked up Sunset Peak, and I just kind of remember sitting at the top going, wow, that's a dead easy hike. Even though I know that it's not. Like, a lot of people do that hike, and it's a tough hike. It's steep. It's long. It's tough. But I was like, wow, for me, that was really easy. And I just remember thinking, I wonder if I can do that every day. Like, let's just come up to this summit here every day. And I remember going back down that evening and saying to my dad, hey, I reckon I bet I could go up and down that every day for 50 days. And he went, nah, get out of here. No way. Can't do that. That's just too much. I went, all right, then I'm going to do it for 100 days. And I did it every day for 100 days. I found some way up Sunset Peak, and I'd never really explored all the trails either. Because after a while, I was doing the same sort of up and down when I was walking. But once my shin started to get better and I could kind of jog a little bit on the ups and walk the downs, and then eventually I could run up and down, I started to think, okay, well, what's a different way I can go up? And I found a bunch of different routes up, and I really got very, very strong. I don't think I've ever been stronger than when I was going up that mountain every day.
And when you say strong, relative, what do you mean? Like, legs felt strong?
Yeah, I mean, I was very resilient. I had no soreness ever. Even just like my discipline was really, my mental game was really strong, because I had this obligation to get up the mountain every day. So even if I had a busy day in the morning, I had to find time.
And give us context. How far is it up and down?
So the shortest way, I did allow myself to take the bus to Pat Kung Au if I had a very busy day. But
sometimes take a helicopter to...
Yeah. that was out of the budget. But the shortest way would be Pat Kung Ao, which is a 2 km hike, but it's all like a massive staircase. If anyone's done Pat Kung Ao to Sunset Peak, they know how steep and awful that is. But that is the shortest way up and down. But even that would probably take me maybe 25 minutes up and 15 minutes down. So we're still looking at a good 45 minutes total activity. But the longer ways, I'd sometimes go from Moi Wo, I'd sometimes go from the beach, and I'd go all the way up via the contour, via Nam Shan. It also was within the 100 days, I signed up for the China Coast Marathon, which is in Sai Kung. Also, if anyone's done that, they know how brutal that course is. It's a road marathon, but it has 800 meters of climbing in it. So it's not a fast marathon. It was day 60, I think, of the challenge. So I ran the marathon in the morning. I won. I unfortunately didn't get the course record. I was on pace, but I cramped twice and then got sent the wrong way. So I did about 800 meters extra. And I missed the course record by about 5-6 minutes. But then I got home that night about lunchtime or 2 in the afternoon, and I was in bed, and I had just run a marathon that morning. And my brother went, "Oh, but you've still got to go. It's day 60. You've got to go up." And I was like, "I don't know if I can today." He's like, "No, you said you were going to do every day." And he's like, "I'm coming with you. Like, let's go. Let's do it. I'll come with you." And I remember we waited quite a long time. It got dark. We got the headlamps out. I got the hiking sticks. And we went up the bus to Pat Kung Ao, which is the shortest way, but the steepest way. And I had to really work to get up there. But I got up there at about 11 p.m. So I just about made it. And that was probably the best day of the whole 100-day challenge. Probably quite stupid in terms of a training, like a coaching aspect. But I think, yeah.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah. But I think just, again, that discipline, right? It just teaches you that you can do a lot more than you realize if you have this obligation in your day. So and then I started to get really healthy and fit again. So I was incorporating workouts, so like road workouts and track workouts. So I would run the track workout, and then I would still have to go up the mountain. So I was kind of already training for this marathon hike day without realizing it. But yeah, I mean, I just got really fit and really strong. I had absolutely no strength and conditioning during that time. I also changed a lot of other things. I changed my diet. I changed my sort of lifestyle in general. And it all just sort of lined up very nicely over that 100-day period.
Give me the 1 minute express version of what your diet looks like.
Well, it's different now, but during that 100-day challenge, I did like keto, no carb. And I kept that up I kept it up strictly for about 6 months. And it absolutely changed the way I eat. I now kind of eat normal, balanced, I suppose, but have kept the aspect of running fasted in the morning. Yeah. So unless I have,
what do you like about that?
I feel better. And also after the 6 months of low carb, high fat, I no longer woke up starving. I used to wake up just absolutely starving, and the first thing I had to do was eat. I was just so hungry all the time, and then I would go run, and then I would eat, and then I would fall asleep, and then I would eat, and then I would go to class, and then I'd eat, and it was just a constant day of eating, and it was always bread and cereal and because that's what they tell you, especially in the US. That's like, you must eat 60% carbs, you must do this, it's the only way. And it's like, okay, I'll do that, and it's cheap. So yeah. But then it was actually my mum who got me into it, because she does a lot of the trail walker 100K, and she did her, I think that year must have been her 9th or 10th 100K, and she had been doing no carb for a year by that point, and she came down the next day fine. I was like, that's not how that works. I've seen you do 100Ks before, and you've been broken for days. So the recovery aspect really appealed to me, so I thought I had to try it, and yeah, definitely made a difference.
Love it. Let's go. We're talking a lot about just like running in general.
Yes, yeah.
And what would you say with the people that you're working with, people who come to Buffalo Running Club for the first time?
Yeah.
So they have aspirations to be good at fill in the blank, a marathon, 100K trail walkers, whatever the race that they're prepping for. What is probably the number one global mistake that you see as a coach that people make in trying to prep for these races?
Running too fast.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Share more.
It's just, I think people don't realize that it's okay to go slow, and it's actually okay to walk, especially in Hong Kong, up those hills. I walk on my easy runs. I do it all the time. It's totally fine. I think when you're training, you have to leave your ego aside, and people really struggle with that. And actually, I would say I've been running 10, 11 years now. I would say it took me about 5 to learn what true easy running means.
So tell me what true easy in your eyes actually means.
It should be 80% of your running, the whole 80-20 thing. I do believe in that. There's some give or take, but generally most of your running should be easy. And what that means, you can put a metric on it. You can put heart rate.
Yeah, give us a heart rate.
For me, I don't really aim for it. It's sort of an output variable, but typically my heart rate will be anywhere between 130 and 160. So it's quite a wide range. Yeah. So some days if I'm feeling like I want to push a bit, I'll just make sure I don't go too much over 160. Other days when I don't even feel like running, I'll just make sure I get it up above 130, and that's good enough for an easy run.
Yeah, and I would say that most people, if they actually ran at 130, would feel that it was way too slow.
Yeah. I mean, and even when I was learning how to run easy, I went and did some runs at 7 minutes per K, which was painfully slow for me because normally I run at 4 minutes per K. So I was running almost double the time per K, but it was a really important skill for me to learn to just slow down. And I also think your easy runs should not feel taxing. You should not feel sore the next day or even the day of. You should not feel exhausted. It should not really affect you. You should be able to go about your day no problem.
And can I ask why? Why is that a mistake? Why is a mistake going too fast and not going slow enough?
I think if people spend too long in the moderate sort of zone where they're sort of working hard, but not really hard enough to where it's considered quality run-in. But also, my coach in college used to call it quality junk. So you're running quite impressive runs sometimes, and it might feel good, and you might get an initial fitness spike for the first couple weeks, because that's what moderate running does. It does get you fitter quite quickly, but its ceiling is very low. So, and then what happens is you mentally too, you want to maintain your paces and you want to maintain your distance. And it becomes difficult and draining because you're not fully recovering between sessions, and you're not really ever able to have higher peaks and lower lows.
I mean, it's exactly the same as strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
It's the people who go, they max out every single time they train. And if you reach your ceiling very fast, it's very hard to progress in the long run. And going back to the way that you talked about, how you map out a year for a runner, and you're not doing the low intensity quality base building work. You just don't have the foundations there to allow you to continue to get better in the long run, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you got, like, another thing my coach used to say was, if you want to run fast, you got to spend a lot of time running slow. Yeah. Like, you just got to accept that sometimes it's a bit mundane. Sometimes it's not the most interesting, but those are the miles that count.
I mean, even myself, I'm very well aware of, heart rate zones, having gears, building bases. And every time I come back to running, I've been out, I haven't run in 3 months since I had stem cells in my knee, but my plan is in the next month to get back to it.
Start slow.
And I know, that I should, I really want to be accumulating. I'll probably start trying to accumulate, 20 to 30 minutes below 130, and I know how painfully slow that's going to feel, but I know that's exactly what I need to do. Right? And actually I like having the watch on me and the heart rate to just double check, because if left to my own devices and someone said, if you said, Ed, you just run at like a zone 2 moderate pace, and if I checked my heart rate 50 minutes, and I'd probably be at 160, 150, 160.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay to do that, but not every day.
Not every day.
Yeah.
Okay, Harry, you talked about culture earlier. You dropped the word culture when you talked about the Buffalo Running Club. You have a hashtag or a term that I've seen on your site and your social media pages, which is "Let's harvest this rice." Please explain. What does that mean?
So back in 2019, or probably even earlier, to be honest, there was sort of an internet thing, especially in the US, where it was "Let's get this bread," which was kind of like a meme, right, in the US, and sort of as a joke. Like, it was kind of a joke initially when I came up with the hashtag, but when I came up with the club and the branding and the buffalo as our kind of mascot, as our icon, the layers started to add up, and I actually started to see analogies and metaphors that did work with that phrase. The idea is that, like, running and having a target, it is a harvest. Like, it's not a come in, come out, get what you want in one day. It's a process that takes many, many months and lots of dedication and patience and trust. And being Japanese, rice is very important. In Japanese culture, there's like 200 types of rice. And the process from paddy to plate is a very, very specific and cultured one that takes a lot of steps and a lot of care. I mean, if anyone has watched anything about like that Zero Dreams of Sushi or whatever, where the chef is trained for his whole life just to prepare sushi. It's kind of like that thing. It's like dedicating to the craft and to the process. So that's the harvest part of it. The rice is sort of just, I mean, buffaloes are used to harvest rice a lot in the fields in a lot of Southeast Asian countries. So, you know, we are the buffaloes. We go into the fields, the roads, the trails, and the track, and we harvest our rice. And it was also a very easy analogy to tell kids, like, look, like 1 kilometer or a minute of running, that's 1 grain that you've harvested. And by the end of the season, by race day, we want a whole bag of rice that we want to cook and serve, right? So it takes a long time. And also, I mean, more layers here, right? When you do a hard run or a race or a workout or you have a stressful day, that costs you rice. So you actually lose some, right?
I love that.
So you want to keep your bag full, but you can't exponentially fill that bag. You have to spend some to make some. It's very...
And so you're teaching kids about the idea of balance.
Yeah, balancing.
And we have limited resources every day. Spend your resources wisely.
Yeah. So like a lot of kids, they'll want to run hard in PE, they'll want to run hard in their football, and then they want to come to running and run hard again. And I'm like, okay, well that's a whole lot of rice you've just spent there, right? And now you're out, and now you're burned out or injured or sick, and that's the price you have to pay, and you have to kind of learn from that.
Love it. Yeah. Harry, tell me about Harbour Sports Club.
Yeah. So where to begin? I guess I went to the UK in 2021 to sort of get out of Hong Kong, and it was the 5th wave or 6th wave, I can't remember. And I remember seeing and that was a time when a lot of Hong Kong people were moving to the UK kind of in mass waves. And when I came back, I met up with this guy, Nick, who runs the local elite team called Team Solo, who I also coach now. Initially we met up because he wanted me to be the consultant coach for their team. So that's some young local runners who are looking to make a life through professional running, right? Which is a very cool project in itself in Hong Kong, right? But he also had another project after I kind of chatted with him for a while about my club and my philosophy, coaching style. He said, I've got this other project that I want you to be a part of. It's called Harbour Sports Club. It's in the UK, and it's for migrants, particularly Hong Kongers, who have sort of, you know, abandoned ship, if you want to put it that way, and have packed up and moved across harbours. That's why it's called Harbour Sports Club. And gone and settled in the UK. And for a lot of these families, this has been a rush decision. Like, they've decided we need to go now. It needs to be absolutely right now, especially with there was the whole B&O situation. Everything's been very quick, and COVID, it's been a very rapid decision for a lot of these families. So a lot of them have moved to small towns and villages, not even in big cities. Some of them are the only Hong Kong family in that neighborhood. I mean, I met a guy who just moved his whole family to Woking. And now he's like, doesn't know any other Hong Kong people in Woking. And I'm like, I don't even know if I've heard of Woking, to be honest. I had to look it up on the map. And basically, we want to set up this club to be a support network for not just Hong Kongers, but migrants in general, to be a community that people can get in touch with and find other people who have shared the same life experiences as them and the same struggles. And they can bond together and assimilate to their new home through sport. And we're starting with athletics and we're starting with running just because the board and I, that's our background. Another guy on the board is Jackie Leung, who I don't know if you know about the 4 Trails, but he was the first guy to break 50 hours in the 4 Trails, and he's on the board as well. And it's quite a cool group of us that have come together for this project. And yeah, we had our first project in April for the Reading Half Marathon, because there's a high concentration of Hong Kong runners in Reading. We got some funding from the Reading Council. Basically, I did an online program and some online sessions with a bunch of Hong Kongers who signed up to prepare for this half marathon. Some of them were running to beat their best. Some of them had never run a half marathon. But the idea was just to get together as a team and run together. And I also flew out and ran the race. And that was super successful. It's actually been nominated for a community award in the southeast region of England Athletics or something like that. Awesome. And this is all in the first 6 months of the club. We've also secured some funding from the UK government to kind of get our club up and running. So the wheels are in motion. It's a very exciting project. Right now we're only running, but one day we want a Harbour Football Club. We want to be in the football league system. We want to have something that migrants and immigrants can identify with and be welcomed in and feel at home in their new home. because that's something that's very difficult for people who have to up and leave suddenly. They lose everything they love about their home, and it can be difficult to settle into a new place that has, cold weather and different food, and sometimes an unwelcoming, a seemingly unwelcoming community. But I think if we can help them assimilate and integrate, British people are generally pretty welcoming once they get to know you.
Nice little addition at the end there.
Yeah.
Is there anything about your own story running here in Hong Kong that has attracted you to wanting to be a part of something like Harbour Sports Club?
Yeah, I think in a weird way, I resonate very deeply with the Hong Kong people who have moved, and especially the kids that have moved, or the kids that will be born to those young families that have moved. Because I was born here as an outsider, and they will now be born over there as outsiders. I mean, they will be English because they're born and raised there, but they will forever have that asterisk on their nationality, and they will always feel sort of not at home in their home, which is how I've always felt. But I have come to realize over the years and meeting many people just like me that a lack of identity, a lack of culture is a culture in its own sense. And we can harness that shared sort of sentiment through sport. It's just such a great vehicle. Running especially is such an accessible sport. And we can really, again, harvest that, that community and that culture to empower people and get them involved and have them feel a part of something, which can be just so difficult if you're the only Hong Kong family in your village in the UK, right? So
I love it.
That's the goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's amazing work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then another cool thing I did, so in the Reading trip, which was April this year, we did the half marathon. That was super successful. I also got to meet a bunch of Hong Kong people who ran the half marathon or who have just moved to the UK and talk about their experiences and what it's like, especially all ages too. I talked to some kids who had changed schools. I was asking them what school in the UK is like compared to Hong Kong. They love it. It's a lot easier. And just parents who have decided to move. It was great, and really helped me fall in love with the mission of what we were doing, because I got to meet the people on the ground. And then also I would go and do a park run, because I was there for about 3 weeks. I did a few park runs. I did one in Leeds, one in London. And we have a shirt. I wore the shirt. People were asking me, what's that about? And I told them the mission. And it didn't really matter who I told. They all loved it, because I think everyone can identify with that feeling of not feeling welcomed. So it was a strong mission, people getting behind it. And then at the end of the trip, I did a personal fundraising challenge.
130K, right?
Yeah, I ran from Brighton to London. I don't really know why. I just wanted to do it. And then I brought it up to the board. I was like, this could be a cool thing to maybe get some attention, get our name out there. And then we helped fundraise for Run Hong Kong as well, which is the NGO here that I work with sometimes. And yeah, it was a very unique challenge. I did the Downs Link Railway, which is a railway from Guildford to the coast. That's now converted into one trail. So that's really cool. And yeah, I did it in 14 hours. I had a cold the whole time. That was awful. It was the furthest I'd ever run, and we raised a bunch of money for both projects. So that was really cool.
Amazing. Yeah. Awesome work, Harry. I'm going to finish this on, got 2 questions for you. The first question is, this is for, maybe there's going to be a lot of people listening to this podcast now who are listening to your passion and love for running. And the passion is really obvious and it's really infectious. You're making me actually want to go running, and I don't really run, to be honest. But advice for first time runners. So someone's not really a runner. And when we say a run, I don't mean like the odd run every now and then, but, dedicating themselves to, let's say, going out every week, or maybe even signing up to a race, or, doing like a marathon. What is your advice? You've talked about the importance of going slow. We've said that already, but what would be your advice to first time runners?
I would say set process goals rather than I want to run a half marathon. I want to run.
By the way, guys, I didn't pay him to say that on the process podcast.
Yeah, that's
that was Harry's thing. Continue. Yeah. Process goals.
Process goal. So a process goal is like a behavioral goal. So I'm going to run 20 minutes a day, or not even run. I'm going to get outside for 20 minutes a day, because some days you won't feel like going for a run. In fact, if you're not a runner, most days you won't feel like going for a run. But if you can dedicate the goal of just getting outside and moving for 20 to 30 minutes a day, that's a huge start already. And once you build that behavior trait in your schedule, you're well on your way to becoming a runner. Whereas if you just have the goal of completing a half marathon or running a certain time or distance, that's an outcome goal, and that's great. And that can motivate you. That's great for motivation, but it's not great for discipline, I'd say. Discipline comes with process goals. Things like getting up at a certain time, maybe eating a certain way, running a certain amount, gym, other things. Like, I think that's your best bet, is setting a process goal. And it can be as simple as getting outside for 30 minutes a day.
Mate, I couldn't have answered that any better myself. Love it.
Yeah.
I would just add on to that, making sure that process goal is something that's achievable.
Yes. And make it easy. So like my 100-day Sunset Peak thing, the whole reason I did that was because doing it once was very easy. Yeah. I sat there and I thought, this is easy. I could do this every day. And then I thought, well, could I do it because then the challenge becomes less about the task itself and more about the commitment of doing it every day. And that's what makes it hard. It's the same with doing a race like a half marathon or a marathon. It's not the pace that should tire you. It's the duration of the race which should tire you. So if you're tired by kilometer 5, you're in trouble, because really the pace should not tire you at all. It should be that you get tired at the end.
Love it. Okay, last question, tradition on the podcast.
Okay.
Which is, describe your perfect day.
Oh, man. People are going to hate me, but it's probably still getting up at 5.
Me too.
I'd say going for a very long mountain run starting at like 6 a.m. and like getting up early enough to where you're on the mountain ridge to see the sunrise. That's pretty special. Yeah, at least 3 hours, I'd say. At least 3 hours of mountain running time in good weather.
What's good weather?
Below 15. Dry.
Centigrade.
Yeah.
That's cold.
Yeah. No, I want it to be where you're layered up when you leave the house, but by the time you're up in the mountain, you're feeling good and you're warmed up and you're not sweating too much. Then I'd say, yeah, big breakfast. And then just, put on the Normatec and watch some TV. That's a pretty good day. I mean, that's most day. To be honest, that's most Sundays.
So can I just say, if that's your day, you start running at 5.
Well, 6.
Yeah. You come back at 9. So you're from 9 till bedtime in Normatec boots.
Well, no. I'd say there's a lot of faffing about when it comes to it. I mean, I say it's more like leave the door at 6. I'm probably getting all my stuff ready, and by the time I actually start running, I find my GPS on my watch. It's maybe 6:30 or something like that. When I get back from the run, maybe I'm gonna get a cold drink first before I shower, and it's a very slow process. Nice. And just trying to relax and wind down, and spending time with my girlfriend and my family, and just relaxing and just enjoying the hopefully good weather. We haven't had much of that lately, but yeah, eat, sleep, run. That's the dream.
Love it.
Yeah.
Harry, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've loved the conversation.
Yes, me too.
Where can people find out more about what you do and be a part of what you're doing?
Well, you can follow us on Instagram or our website, buffco.hk, buffco.hk, both Instagram and website. And there's my Instagram too, Harry Loasby. And then Harbour also has a website and Instagram, harboursc.co.uk. So yeah, please hope to see you guys at the track.
Awesome, Harry. It's been an absolute pleasure. Until next time.
Thank you so much for having me.